grown up listening to, liking. One of them is Sayyid Qutb, okay? And he is one of the callers to the Ikhwan movement. And from his call is what many of those who spread the evil of today quote. They quote his tafsir on certain ayat. If you know what some of those tafsir were, you would realize there was so much corruption in them, you would burn the copy of it. But you don't know why you don't go to the ulama. But when you praise these extremist ideologies, then this kind of harm develops. From the noble scholar Ubayd al-Jabari, Hafidhahullah, he said with respect to the terrorist attacks and the likes in France, he said, firstly, these acts are not from the acts of the people of Sunnah. Rather, they are from the actions of the deviated ones from the Khawaarej, the renegade insurgents, the ones who said, you're not a Muslim if you make a major sin. The ones whom the Prophet ﷺ said are the dogs of the hellfire. He said, those who sail upon their ship are with them, even if they ascribe themselves to Islam. He said, inform your non-Muslim neighbors that the people of France, the rest of Europe, the United States, this is Sheikh Ubayd al-Jabari, Hafidhullah. He said, you will not find a single scholar who is a person of Sunnah who would approve these acts or encourage them. Rather, the people of Sunnah and their scholars, their students of knowledge, their general folk, condemn and forbid these acts of disorder and anarchy. The one who would carry out these acts is either a Khariji or an ignoramus who does not know the Sunnah and does not know how the people of Sunnah behave with their neighbors who are non-Muslims. The people of Sunnah treat their neighbors in a good manner. They abide by their agreements and contracts, and they do not agree or approve of those acts of anarchy and disorder and savagery. He said, I advise my children from amongst the Muslims, whether they be preachers on the pulpits or teachers or callers, that you free yourselves and disassociate yourselves from these barbaric acts, declaring that openly. Don't be afraid, declare openly. Islam is free from these barbaric acts that people do, these Khawaarej do in their name. The great scholar, the previous mufti of Saudi Arabia, Sheikh Ibn Baz, rahimahullah ta'ala, may Allah have mercy upon him, he said there is no doubt that these acts of terrorism and those who perpetrate it, there is no doubt that this is an act that can only be undertaken by one who does not believe in Allah or the last day. He's saying these ones who do this, they do not believe in Allah and the last day. You will not find anyone who believes in Allah and the last day with correct and sound belief performing this criminal and vile act, due to which great harm and corruption has occurred. Only vile souls, filthy, vile means filth, the worst, disgusting souls which are filled with enmity, jealousy, evil, corruption, absence of iman in God and His Messenger, can perform the likes of these acts, and we ask for Allah's well-being and safety. Ameen. And the Shaykh Ibn Baz, rahimahullah, he also said, and there is no doubt that this is from the greatest crimes and from the greatest types of corruption on the earth. And those who perform the likes of this are more deserving to be killed and being restrained on account of what they have committed of a great sin. They have the deservingness to be killed. And we ask Allah that He makes them lose their efforts and shackles them. This is the previous mufti of the kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Hafidhullah, rahimahullah, who said, he made dua against them, that Allah shackles them, that He grabs them like by their ankles and ends their disruption. My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, the appearance of Al-Shabaab in Somalia, ISIS or Daesh in Syria and Iraq, Boko Haram in Nigeria, Al-Qaeda and the likes, it's not a new phenomenon. Muslim governments have been dealing with this for centuries. They've been dealing with this for centuries. Along with the Shia, these Kharijis, these Kharijites, these Khawarij have never recognized any legitimacy except their own. It's either their way or the highway. Everything else is evil and wrong. Ibn Kathir, the one who is the great scholar, rahimahullah, who died over 7 centuries ago, the scholar and the historian, he said this about what resonates in our times, and one senses the deep insight of this scholar. He said regarding the Khawaarej, if they ever gain strength, they would surely corrupt the whole of the earth including Iraq and Syria. Ibn Kathir, rahimahullah, the one who is known mostly for writing Qisas al-Anbiya, the stories of the prophets, and Tafsir Ibn Kathir, the famous tafsir of his on of the Quran, the explanation of the Quran and the sharh of it. 7 centuries ago, he said about these groups of the Khawaarej, if they ever gain strength, they would surely corrupt the whole earth. He said, including Iraq and Syria. 7 centuries ago. They would not leave alone a child. These guys nowadays, there's no mercy in them. They don't leave alone a child. A male or a female, a man or a woman. They burned a Muslim man who was in a fighter jet and they captured in a cage. This is savagery. This is barbarism. And Islam does not call from it, and Islam is free from it. This is because as far as they're concerned, the people have caused corruption, a corruption that cannot be fixed except with mass killing. Shaykh al-Ajuri, rahimahullah, he said over 1,000 years ago, neither the scholars of old nor of these times ever differed about the Khawaarej. They regarded them as an evil people who were disobedient to Allah and His Messenger, even though they prayed, even though they fasted, even though they exerted themselves in worship. And all of this was no benefit to them. As the Shaykh Hafidhahullah, he mentioned, fast, pray, give zakah, go to Hajj, do whatever. You can still be the muflis. You can still be the one who's bankrupt on that day. Ibn al-Jawzi, who died in 1200 in this common era, he said, they permitted the killing of children, yet they did not allow the eating of any fruit from a tree without paying for it. They tired themselves of worship and would frequently stay awake, yet they raised their swords against the Muslims. In Iblis, Ibn al-Jawzi, rahimahullah, he said, even shaitan, even Satan himself, could not have imagined the extent of their evil. This is the evil one, the one who wanted to try and get you to follow his way. Even him, he said, wouldn't even know that their evil would go this far. The current Mufti, Sheikh Abdul Aziz al-Sheikh, Hafidhahullah, of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, he said, the terrorism of Daesh and Al-Qaeda is Islam's #1 enemy. When you tell this statement to non-Muslims, they're shocked. Because he has reverence in our deen. He's the Mufti of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, houses the 2 holy sanctuaries in Mecca and Medina. And he said the terrorism of Daesh, of ISIS and Al-Qaeda is Islam's #1 enemy. Even if you just take that statement and you email it to your friends, your neighbors, your family that's not Muslims, your family that is Muslims, they will be shocked. Because they are more of an enemy to us than they are to the kuffar. The ideas of extremism, radicalism, terrorism have nothing to do with Islam, and their proponents are the main enemy #1 of Islam. He said also, Hafidhahullah, groups like Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, like we see in Yemen and the likes, Daesh, ISIS, Hezbollah in the kingdom, the Ikhwan, the Muslim Brotherhood, the Houthiyya in Yemen, they're all groups that have no good with them. The ulama know. They've been blessed with that knowledge. Allah has guided them to that. Remember, we said even the fish in the sea make dua for them. They're for us to go to prove and help us know who to avoid. We haven't done the job to know evil, as the Shaykh mentioned, so that we could stay away from it. So it's upon us. فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. So ask the people of knowledge if you do not know. Sheikh Salih al-Suhaimi, he is a former professor in the Islamic University in Medina, in the Prophet's Masjid. He said, when asked what's the current stance of this group, Daesh, ISIS, he responded, the correct stance towards them is that they're Takfeerys. They are an extreme group of individuals who they excommunicate people from Islam for making a major sin. And they are Khawaarej, a deviant sect of renegades. Both of them are on the wrong path, An-Nusra and Daesh and ISIS, but the latter is more evil. Sheikh Abdul Muhsin al-Abbad, Hafidhahullah, a former head of the university, the Islamic University in Medina, and a teacher at the Prophet's Masjid, he said when asked, so what about those who pledge allegiance to Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, this phony who says he's the Khalifa? He said about that, he said, they have pledged allegiance to shaitan. They have pledged allegiance to the devil. Another phrase, if you took to those out there whom you know, Muslim and non-Muslim, they would be shocked to know how much the call from our ulama, from our scholars, reject these evil ideologies. Sheikh Salih al-Suhaimi, who we mentioned, he said that this Khalifa, Hafidhahullah, he's an imposter and a liar. He's from the callers of dalal, of misguidance. He slaughtered the Muslims in Sham and now in Iraq. He said when the Prophet ﷺ sent Mu'adh ibn Jabal to Yemen, what did he say to him? He said, فَادْعُهُمْ إِلَى شَهَادَةِ أَنْ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهُ وَأَنِّي رَسُولُ اللَّهِ. He said when you send someone out to call to Islam, you don't go to them and behead them and do whatever evil you're doing. He said call them to testify that there is no God worthy of worship except for Allah alone without partners, and that I am His messenger, that Muhammad ﷺ is His messenger and servant. If they obey you in that, then you teach them the salah. You tell them that Allah has made it compulsory upon you to pray 5 times in the day. Allah ordered that the call to worship be to Allah alone without any partners, and this is the foundation of our deen. But we see these groups calling to the Khalifa, not calling to Tawheed. They're not calling to Tawheed. They skip calling to Tawheed, skip calling to the correct Aqidah, skip calling to Salah, skip calling to Zakah, skip calling all of that. They're calling to this Khalifa. And the Khalifa is for Allah. He is the one who decrees for it to be established, and this will occur when a member of the family of the Messenger of Allah ﷺ appears, and he is the Mahdi. And he will come and prepare for the way for Nuzul Isa ibn Maryam, the descension of Jesus, son of Mary, alayhi salam. This is the Khalifa that will exist, and the true one. The current Mufti of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Sheikh Abdulaziz al-Sheikh, Hafidhahullah, he said against Boko Haram, they're the Khawaarej of Nigeria. They embarrassed and lied. They embarrassed the Muslims. They lied against Islam when they abducted those girls and harmed them. And they're an evil group. He said of them, they're the Khawaarej of Nigeria. Their actions are evil and harmful for Islam and the Muslims. He said their actions are destructive, and abducting girls is from actions of a misguided group. If they are claiming to call to jihad, then this is nothing but ignorance and hatred against Islam. These groups, they hate Islam, al-Islam. They hate the religion of Islam that the Prophet ﷺ delivered to us by Allah's mercy. They hate it, and they hate the Muslims who follow the Sunnah. They only want you to follow their way. They are not upon correctness and guidance because Islam opposes abduction and kidnapping, unlawful killing and transgression. Sheikh Al-Allama Salih Al-Luhaydan, Hafidhahullah, was asked by one of the brothers, what is the correct stance towards the terrorist attacks in France? And this goes for elsewhere. He said, no doubt that what we have heard and that which has been spread about this serious, heinous criminal act. Heinous in English, we know, is not just a bad action. Heinous is like the worst, despicable, horrible criminal act. It shows that it is an evil, immoral act. It is not ever possible that Islam sanctions this, nor anyone truthful from mankind who believes in Allah and the Exalted. This is because this is evil, deceit, treachery, and it causes fear and terror. Likewise, it involves harming those who have no connection to foreign politics and policy, like women and children, and those who are incapable or may not be incapable, transgressing against them by committing heinous, serious atrocities. Thus, every intelligent believer condemns their actions with no doubt. Also, the Islamic countries that I've heard of, at the foremost of them, the land of the 2 holy sanctuaries, severely condemn these actions. This is a criminal act that deserves to be condemned by every believer and every intelligent person. And I ask Allah, the Shaykh says, Hafidhullah, to thwart their actions. We should pray that Allah protects us from their evil, breaks up their plots, disrupts their plots, shackles them, as Shaykh Ibn Baz, Hafidhullah, said, from their feet, to thwart them immediately without any delay, and Allah's aid is sought. Shaykh Al-Anjari, Hafidhullah, he said, you're a pathetic person who, if you claim that terrorism is jihad, you lie and distort the religion of Allah. Al-Imam al-Ajuri, rahimahullah ta'ala, he stated, the scholars did not differ in the past times and in the current times that the Khawaarej are an evil people. They're sinners against Allah, the Most High, and His Messenger ﷺ, even if they pray and fast and strive in worship, for that is not to benefit them, not of benefit to them, since they are people who interpret the Quran upon desire and they disguise themselves as Muslims. That's what they're doing. It's all a disguise. They're using Islam to propagate their evil. Indeed, Allah warned us against them, and the Prophet ﷺ warned against them, and the rightly guided Khalifas from Abu Bakr, the best in this ummah after the Prophet ﷺ, radiyallahu anhu, and then Umar radiyallahu anhu, then Uthman radiyallahu anhu, then Ali ibn Abi Talib radiyallahu anhu. They all warned us against them, and the companions, the Sahaba ajma'een radiyallahu anhum, warned us against them, and all those who follow them upon righteousness warned us against them. As we're finishing, maybe two more little quotes. Sheikh Zayd al-Madkhali, hafidhahullah, he said, these bombings and assassinations and these suicide missions, they are satanic improvisations for which no evidence is established from the Quran or the prophetic traditions. These are satanic. They are spewing with the devil having his touch upon them. Rather, they are only in accordance with erroneous understanding in which their proponents have erred. They will break their own burden, they will bear their own burdens alongside the burdens of all those who they misguide, from those they have enlisted as soldiers and who have obeyed and followed them without evidence. They have convinced them that they are engaged in jihad in the path of Allah, but they have lied regarding that. We have some great pamphlets we've just brought in as well, and I encourage you to take them and take multiple ones. One of them is Daesh or ISIS, jihad in the path of Satan, because their jihad is not the jihad